Tov, Boker Tov, and today's Daf Yomi is Bava Metzia, Daf Yud Beis, Bava Metzia 12. So we're going to start on 12a, around 4 lines from the top. Says the Gemara, Gufa. We learned previously, Rao, son, Ratzin Achar Metzia, that if a man saw them running after the lost object or a deer with a broken leg on their property, if he says it's mine, it's mine. And so says but if it wasn't broken, then it's not enough. So says Rebbe here, 12a at the top, 12 at the top. So if he sees it as a broken leg and he's running after it, and he says it's mine, it's mine. So says Rabbi Yirmiyah in the name of Rabbi Abin, Musha Ratzach Reinu Magian. That's only where he could catch it before it gets off his property. But if he can't catch it before it gets off his property, he doesn't get to keep it. So by Rabbi Yirmiyah b'matana hayach. So they said, what about with a gift? If a person gave him a gift, he says, I'm giving you a gift, but he wasn't able to he wasn't able to acquire it because he was running on his property and he was able to, do we say that he's only acquires it if he was able to catch it before it got off of his property? So, Kibbul B'nei, Rabbi Abba Bar Kahana, Ava Pisharat Zachreim Heim again. So, Rabbi Abba Bar Kahana said he accepted this distinction, that by a gift, we draw a distinction from a lost object. And a gift, even if he can't reach it, we say that he's acquired it if it's on his property and he screams out, it's mine, it's mine. But now Rava asked the question, by Rava, Zarak Arna gave a Pesach Sev, Yatz Pesach Acher. Somebody threw a wallet, Rashi says, and this is very important, Rashi says, he made it ownerless for whoever wants to come and get it first. But it's still, commentaries point out, it's not like a lost object because he's still, the person who's giving it over, it's not exactly a gift and it's not exactly a lost object. It's in between. So this guy throws the wallet and it's going through the air of the property. It comes in through one window and goes out the other window. What will be the law? Do we say avir shein sofel nuach kavunach tami alo? Do we say the air that's not able to rest, is it like it's resting or not? So Amalei Rav Papa Rava, Amalei Rav Ada Bar Masna Rava, Amalei Ravina Rava Lav Hainu Masnisin. Isn't this our Mishnah? Rao son Ratzin Achar Metzia. Isn't this the case of our Mishnah where it says that he sees them running after the lost object, and he states, "V'amar Rav Yirmiyah Rav Yochanan v'husha ratzach reinu magian u'bai Rav Yirmiyah b'matana hayach l'kibu minei Rav Abba Bakana b'matana pisha ratzach reinu ve'im magian." So he says, isn't this case where he throws the wallet similar to the case of the gift, that he doesn't have to be able to reach it because the wallet is like the gift? Because it was, and this is how the commentaries explain Rashi, because it was something that he threw, and so it came with intent. So therefore, even if he can't reach it, it should be his. So they said no. The response was, so Rava responds and says, no, two cases are different. Amalei miskalgo kamra, shani miskalgo to munach dami. Now the case where there was the gift of, let's say, a deer, that was on the ground. So it was rolling, it was on the ground. So that's different than the case of something flying through the air. On the ground, it's like it was placed on the ground already. That's why even if you can't reach it, you've acquired it. Unlike the wallet going through the air, that was intended to go through the air, wasn't intended to stop. So it's a different scenario. Next case is the Mishnah. Metzias beno bito akatanim. Let's say if a person finds his son or his daughter who are minors, they find the lost object, or Metzias avdo v'shivchaso akinanim, or if his Canaanite slaves find the lost object, or Metzias ishto, or if his wife finds an object, then the head of the household, the man, the head of the household, gets to keep it. And the reason, the Gemara is going to explain why the son, if it's the minor son, he gets to keep it, but his daughter, we learned that in Ksuvos because he gets her salary, and And also, why does he get to keep the lost objects that's found by his Canaanite slaves? Because he owns those slaves. And what about his wife? The rabbis instituted that he gets whatever his wife finds, because otherwise it'll lead to animosity, because since he's supporting her. But if it is Matthias Avdo v'Shivchaso Ivrim, if it's his Jewish slaves, or Matthias Ishto Shekirish, or if it's his wife who he's already divorced, and Afapishal Nasan Ksuva, and even though he has not yet given her the Ksuva, then we're going to say that under those circumstances, then we're going to say that the head of the household doesn't get to keep it, then it goes to those who found it. So Amar Shmuel, so Shmuel taught, why do we say that the lost object goes to the father? What's the reasoning? Shebisha, the lost object that the son finds, goes to the father. What's the reasoning? Shebisha Shemotza, because at the moment he finds it, Meritza Eitel Aviv, he runs to his father. He doesn't keep it in his hands. He runs to his father, so that shows his intent when he picked it up was for his father. Says the Gemara, Meimer to Savar Shmuel, so from the fact that the rabbis are able to say that the son was picking it up, he intended to give it to his father, this proves that biblically speaking, he wasn't picking it up for himself, because it was biblically speaking, it was his own. The rabbis wouldn't have said it belongs to the father. But is that really the case? We learned in the Brisa. Let's say somebody hires a worker. Then let's say somebody hires a worker. His son is allowed to collect after him, meaning to say that it's permitted for the son of the worker if he's poor, to collect after his father the remainder gleanings. But let's say the worker had done it. Let's say he was an owner in the field. He had part ownership. He was getting half or a third or a quarter. Then we're going to say that he's like an owner of the field, and the son cannot collect after him because the son is collecting it on behalf of his father. And so Rabbi Yossi says, Rabbi Yossi says, no, the son can collect after his father. If the father is wealthy and the son is poor, the son will acquire for himself. And the Amar Shmuel halacha ka Rabbi Yossi. So we see from here, Shmuel says the law is like Rabbi Yossi. Now, if you want to say that this son is collecting for himself, if you want to say that this son, when he collects it for himself, then when he does the gleanings, he's doing the gleanings for himself, and his father is acquiring it from the son. But if you want to say that, biblically speaking, the minor, as Shmuel seems to have said, does not collect it for himself, if you want to say that, biblically speaking, the minor is not collecting for himself, if that's the case, well, if that's the case, he's collecting on behalf of his father. How can he collect the gleanings from his father? His father is a wealthy man, so how can his father be collecting the leket, which is reserved for the poor? Avu Ashirhu, since the father owns the field, he's viewed as wealthy. So the Gemara says, and the Gemara's question is, then why would the son and his wife be allowed to collect after him? So the Gemara says, Shmuel Taima the Tanati Dan Kamraway. Shmuel himself is of the position that the son is really able to acquire it biblically, with picking up the lost object. But he's explaining just the author of our Mishnah why he says that the lost object that the son picks up goes to the father. So he said it's because the son runs to the father. But Shmuel himself is of the position, Shmuel himself is of the position that the son does acquire it biblically. Gemara says, but wait, now we have a problem because we have a contradiction within Rabbi Yossi. Does Rabbi Yossi really say that biblically speaking the son has acquired it? But didn't we learn in the Mishnah and Gittin that if the minor or the cherish or the shota finds lost object, it's considered theft if you take it because of the ways of peace. Whereas Rabbi Yossi says gezel gamor, it's actual theft. And it's rabbinically actual theft, which proves that So so and and what's the distinction between Rabbi Yossi and the Rabbanan? Nafkamino hotzi b'dayanin, that whether or not you're allowed to take it away from them by judges. But anyway, if somebody else. So we see from here that is that according to Rabbi Yossi, you could take it away with the court. But we see from here that biblically speaking, the minor is not acquiring it. And so therefore, if that's the case, how can we say in this case that the son has acquired it biblically speaking? So the father is really stealing from the poor. So it's a contradiction in Rabbi Yossi. Abai. So Abai says that what's the reason why Rabbi Yossi allows the what's the reason why Rabbi Yossi allows the son of the worker to collect in the field? The reason why he allows the son of the worker to collect in the field is because he's of the position that the minor, he like the author of the Mishnah, like the Rabbanan, does not really acquire it. Well, if that's the case, why is he allowed to collect? We look at this field from the outset and we say it's as though the old poor folk have already gone through, like it's already been picked bare, and therefore everybody's allowed to get it. The poor people have given up hope. And so therefore, Savri Brida Hayach Malakale, because the poor people think, oh, this guy's got his son there, his son has carved out that territory, he's going to collect it. And so therefore, that's why we say, since the poor people gave up hope, we allow them to collect it. So he says, wait, 1 second. Because the father brings his son there, then the poor people give up hope of ever collecting it. So therefore, the son is allowed to collect it. Well, that's backwards. Is a person allowed to put a lion into a field so that the poor people will run away, and then say, oh, the poor people are not here, so I can collect it? We can't do that. The Rava says, what's the reason why we allow the poor people to collect it? Why we allow the worker's son to collect it? We're on top of 12b. And the reason is also she'eno zocha kezocha, that we look at it, the person who has not yet acquired it, meaning to say, even though the minor cannot acquire it, here they allowed him to acquire it. Why? The poor people themselves want this takana. They want the son to be able to collect from the crops. Why? Because they want that if they're hired, their son to be able to go collect after them. So therefore, in this case, they allow it. And this whole approach of Shmuel says that what's the reason why the son does not acquire it? It's the minor's son, because he runs to his father. This whole approach is an argument against Shebchia bar Abba. Says and Shmuel's of the position that biblically speaking he has not that he's saying that the author of our Mishnah is saying biblically speaking he has not acquired it. But this whole approach argues with Rabbi bar Abba. The Amar Rabbi Yechaya bar Abba, Rabbi Yochanan, doesn't mean he's an actual minor. Lo gadol mamish v'lo katan mamish. Al gadol v'samach al shulchan aviv zeu katan, and katan ve'eno samach al shulchan aviv zeu gadol. So he says, Rabbi bar Abba says, no, even if he's an adult, if he's relying on his father to support him, he's considered a minor. And even if he's a minor, if he's not relying on his father to support him, he's considered an adult. So since he's a minor in the sense that his father is supporting him, well, therefore the father is able to acquire the assets that the son picks up. So because otherwise the father is going to get upset. He's saying, I'm supporting you, and then you take what you eat, you take what you find. Why? If I'm supporting you, I should be entitled to what you find. So now we have the next part that says that if the slave or the Hebrew slaves find something, they get to keep it. Gemara says, Amai, why do they get to keep it? Well, they should be like a worker. And when do we say that the worker gets to keep what he finds? So if that's the case, the Gemara says, why are we saying that the Hebrew slaves, that if they find something, that they get to keep it? They should be viewed as a worker. And we learned in the Brisa that the whatever a worker finds gets to keep it. But when do we say the worker gets to keep it? Only bisman she'amar lo nachesh miyayom and other imiyom. Only where he says weed or hoe for me today, gave him a specific task. But if he says just do work for me today, mitzia so about bias, then the owner gets to keep it. And the Hebrew slave, it's like he hired him to do whatever he wants, so he should be able to keep the lost objects that the Hebrew slave finds. The owner should be able to keep it. So the Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. No, here what we're talking about is Evan Nokiv Margolios skin. And we're talking about the type of Hebrew slave who's involved in jewelry. He's polishing the pearls, and so therefore he's a high-end worker. He's a diamond cutter. He's a Nokiv Margolios. He cuts the jewels. So therefore, he doesn't want that his master does not want to change him to a different work. And so therefore, if he picks up a lost object, that's not part of his work purview. And so therefore, the Hebrew slave gets to acquire it. Rava says a different explanation. Rava says, no, where he picked it up as part of his work. So therefore, he did everything he said he was going to do for the master. And this was on the side without in any way limiting his efforts for the master. And so therefore, the slave gets to keep it. Rav Papa gives a completely different explanation. He says, he says, no, why does our Mishnah say he gets to keep it? Because it was just that specific case that what does the Bryce to say he doesn't get to keep it where he was hired for the whole day? That's only where he was specifically hired to find lost objects. But and the Akvi Agma Bekavri, where the fish went up over the banks. But in general, the lost objects would go to the Hebrew slave. Hi Shifcha Hechidami. So the Gemara asked the question. It had said in the Mishnah that the Hebrew slave, the Shifcha, she gets to keep her lost objects. So the Gemara says, what are we talking about? Either Isi Shtei Saros, if she's gone through signs of adolescence, she has the two hairs, my Bai Gabe, then what's she still doing with the master? She should have been left free. And if she hasn't produced the two hairs, if she has a father, then the father should get to the lost object. And if she doesn't have a father, she should have gone free when her father died. Now Reish Lakish had argued in Kedushin that the Hebrew female slave acquires herself with the death of a father from the domain of her master, and Reish Lakish had proved this or tried to prove this from a Kal V'chomer in the first chapter of Kedushin. And what was this Kal V'chomer? Rashi says, just like her signs, which don't take her out from the domain of the father, take her out from the domain of the master, then for sure the death of the father that takes her out from the domain of the father, for sure, it should take her out from the domain of her master. That was Reish Lakish's attempt. But Gemara says, yeah, but we rejected that Kal V'chomer of Reish Lakish. Gemara says, yeah, name him a high nami te'avitiyufta. No, let's say that from here also there should be another rejection of Reish Lakish. Gemara says, no, this is not a rejection of Reish Lakish because we could say, lo am de'isoav. No, we could say that she has still a father here. And what does it mean that it belongs to her? Maya re'en shohen afuki de rabba means it belongs to her, i.e. it belongs to her father, but not to her master. So now we say Metzia Ishto, that let's say a person finds a Metzias Ishto, let's say a person's wife finds something. If she was divorced, she gets to keep it. Well, Gemara says, well, Girsha Pshita, obviously if she's divorced, she gets to keep it. Gemara says, no, Hachamaya Skina, what we're talking about here is the Megarashis ve'eno Megarashis, that we're just not sure if she's divorced. The Amar Rabbi Zer, so she's a suffix divorced. Amar Rabbi Zer, Mashmul, Kol Makom Shamar Chachamim Megarashis ve'eno Megarashis. Anytime we're saying we're not sure if she's divorced, Baal Chayav b'Mizones, husband is required to support her. But what's the reason why in general, what's the reason why in general if the woman finds something, her husband gets to keep it. Because we don't want there to cause strain in the marriage. He's saying, I'm supporting you, but you get to keep your lost objects. But here she's suffix divorced. Isla Eva Eva. We want there to be more animosity because we want the husband to divorce her. We don't want her to stay in this limbo state. So now we come up to the next Mishnah. So says the Mishnah, Matzah Shtarechov. Let's say somebody found a note of indebtedness. Let's say there is written into this note that we're going, as part of this loan, we put a lien on your property. Then the person who finds it should not return it to the lender. Why? Based in Niframan, because the court can take this note and collect from the purchasers. But if there's no note, if there's no lien written in Yachzir, then you can return it to the lender. She'ain based in Niframan, because then the court cannot use it to collect from the purchasers. There's no lien on the properties. That's the position of Rabbi Meir. He says either way, Chacham say you should not return the note to the lender because Bezdin Niframan, because even though it's not written that there's a lien on the other properties, we assume that every contract has a lien on the properties, and so therefore you shouldn't return it because the court could collect it. So says we'll stop the recording here, but we'll go on. We have time.